All right, let's dive into something fascinating today. Heaven. We're going to explore what this ultimate destination looks like. According to Ellen G. White's book, Heaven,
Classic.
for those who might not know, Ellen G. White was she was a prolific religious author. And this book, it digs deep into heaven, using biblical interpretations and, get this, her own visions.
Visions, huh? That's definitely intriguing.
So what we're going to do today is uncover these captivating details that she lays out. Who gets in? What's it like? And how can we, prepare for it now? All based on her writings.
I think what makes this book so interesting is, it's not just some dry theological text.
Right.
White really paints this vivid picture of heaven. She makes it feel almost real.
Yeah, tangible.
It's like getting a sneak peek into a world we obviously can't physically visit yet.
Exactly. Okay, so according to White, there's only one path to heaven, and that is accepting Jesus Christ.
Makes sense.
She compares trying to reach heaven through our own efforts to, well, something we can all relate to, I think. Climbing a ladder. You might, strain and struggle. But in the end, it's futile. The only way up is through Christ's sacrifice.
I like that. The ladder analogy really drives home the point. It's not about earning your way in.
Nope.
It's about accepting a gift. And, that idea
Yeah.
that there's only one path, it sparked a lot of debate and discussion, really, throughout history.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what about those who haven't heard of Christ or, haven't accepted him?
Yeah, that's a big one.
White actually tackles those tough questions in her book. It's definitely something to think about.
For sure. But maybe before we get too deep into those theological weeds, we should move on
Oh, sure.
to maybe the most dramatic event that White describes, Christ's second coming.
All right, get ready, because there's some serious imagery coming. We're talking the sun blazing at midnight, earth trembling, mountains and islands moving out of their places.
Wow. Talk about grabbing your attention. But in all of that chaos, White describes this very specific sign, the one that signals Christ's return. A small black cloud. It appears in the east. And then it grows, and it becomes brilliant white, surrounded by angels and fire. This cloud, she says everyone will see it, the whole world.
Okay, stop right there. Just imagine witnessing that. A massive cloud shining with light, angels everywhere. It's a movie scene. But then, in the middle of all of that, Jesus appears.
Oh, and White doesn't hold back on the details here. She describes him, wearing this diadem of glory, his face, it's radiating light, brighter than the sun, and then his voice, it just rings out, powerful enough to, get this, call forth the sleeping saints from their graves.
That's not just an entrance. That's like a power move. Speaking of the dead rising, this brings us to one of the most, I think, captivating parts of this book, resurrection and transformation. White describes the righteous dead. They're resurrected, but with immortal bodies, and they join the living saints who are, get this, instantly transformed.
And get this, even children who have died, they're brought back to their families. It's really, I think, a comforting image, this whole idea of families being reunited in heaven.
Right, yeah. And it's a powerful reminder that, death, as we understand it, isn't the end. But what about those who are still alive, when all this happens?
Well, White says that basically a believer's life is hidden with Christ. And when Christ appears, they'll also appear with him in glory. It's like this, this grand unveiling, this total transformation. It goes beyond our earthly limits.
So where does this leave everyone? In the glorious realm of heaven, of course. And White's description, it's breathtaking. He talks about the New Jerusalem. It's this city of, well, unimaginable beauty. And then there's the restored Garden of Eden, a paradise where pain, sorrow, and death just don't exist.
It sounds idyllic, doesn't it?
It does. But, I think what's fascinating is that White doesn't just describe the scenery. She gets into, what life in heaven is like. So it's not all just floating on clouds and playing harps. Although, I have to admit, having a personalized crown in heaven, that's kind of awesome.
Personalized crowns, white robes, symbolizing purity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all sounds pretty amazing. But what's even more interesting, I think, is this idea White brings up about heaven. It's a place of continuous learning.
Hold on. So we're talking like heaven is a school.
Exactly. Imagine a place where we can just learn and grow constantly, unraveling the mysteries of the universe. We'd even get to learn about the history of angels, intervening in our own lives. Think about all those times you felt guided, protected, whatever. We'd actually learn about the angels' roles in those moments.
That's a history lesson I would definitely sign up for. I'm already picturing myself, front row, furiously taking notes. But this brings up an important question. What kind of knowledge are you most excited to gain in heaven?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm so curious about the, intricacies of the universe, how it all works, but the beauty of heaven, the way White describes it, is that there's just endless opportunity, right? You can explore and discover anything that interests you. It's like a cosmic library combined with this amazing university you can imagine.
And no exams. But as with any paradise, there's got to be another side to this story, right? White doesn't shy away from, discussing who might not be in heaven.
That's right. She makes it clear that God wants everyone to be saved. But some people, well, they choose a different path, a path that leads them away from him. And she actually lists some pretty specific examples, like Cain, Herod, those involved in, Christ's crucifixion, and even Satan himself.
Whoa, even Satan. So there's no, redemption arc for the ultimate bad guy.
Not according to White, nope. She describes the wicked's, well, their final regret. Not for their sins, really, but for losing eternal life. It's kind of a chilling thought, right? Imagine regretting not the things you did, but the things you missed out on.
That's deep.
Mm.
It's a powerful reminder that our choices matter, and they have consequences, even in the afterlife.
Mhm.
And speaking of consequences, we got to talk about the final judgment, the ultimate reckoning.
Right. White portrays a scene of, well, incredible gravity,
Right.
where everything is weighed, every person's deeds, choices, everything. They're measured against God's perfect standard. And she describes books being opened, symbolizing this complete record of everything we've ever done.
Okay, that's pretty intense, like a cosmic audit, right?
Yeah.
But with much higher stakes.
Absolutely. And during this final judgment, Satan, he's ultimately held accountable for all the sins he caused God's people to commit. It's a strong statement about, well, taking responsibility and the ultimate defeat of evil.
So what happens to those who, aren't deemed worthy of heaven? What's their fate?
White describes it as, well, the ultimate destruction of the wicked. It's the consequence of their rebellion against God. She's not, she doesn't sugarcoat it. Choosing a path away from God has consequences.
Okay, yeah, that's a heavy image. But I guess it makes sense. If heaven is a place of perfect love and harmony, those who choose darkness and discord, well, they wouldn't exactly fit in.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some hope for us here and now. We can't just end on that note.
You're absolutely right. And thankfully, White doesn't leave us hanging. She shifts to this, well, this incredibly empowering message that we can experience a taste of heaven right here, right now, on earth.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. How do we do that? How do we tap into that heavenly vibe?
It's about cultivating, a Christ-like character and living in line with God's principles. White uses this really beautiful analogy. She compares it to a wellspring of life. She says that Christ dwelling within us should be as evident as as a wellspring of life, flowing out through our words, actions, and love for others. So it's not about waiting for heaven. It's about, bringing heaven down to earth through how we live.
So it's about being a reflection of heaven in our everyday lives. It's a challenge, yeah, but it's incredibly inspiring too.
It really is. And honestly, I think that's a perfect place to pause. For this part of our deep dive, we've covered a lot of ground. The path to heaven, the drama of the second coming, the joys of the afterlife, and, well, the consequences for those who choose that other path.
And we've only just begun. We've barely scratched the surface of what White covers in heaven. If you're finding this as fascinating as we are, I definitely recommend you check out the book for yourself. There's so much more to discover, so many captivating details and insights into what awaits those who choose to follow Christ.
It's a book that really stays with you long after you've finished reading it. And hey, if you're enjoying this depth dive, make sure you subscribe to the deep dive for more. We explore all sorts of thought-provoking topics.
We'll be back soon with more fascinating deep dives. We guarantee they'll expand your knowledge and spark your imagination. But until then, here's something to think about. What aspect of heaven resonates most deeply with you? And what steps can you take today, to align your life with the principles that lead you there? It's a journey worth taking in this life and the next.
One of the things that really struck me when I was reading Heaven was just how personal White's descriptions are.
Oh, yeah.
It's not this abstract, far-off kind of way.
Right.
She brings it down to earth, to a human level.
I agree. Totally. And she really tackles some of those, big questions that people have about the afterlife.
Yeah.
Like, what happens to our loved ones?
Yeah.
Will we recognize them?
Yeah.
Will we still have those relationships with them? in heaven?
Those are big questions.
They are,
And I think a lot of people wonder about that.
for sure.
And White paints this very comforting picture of
Right.
reunion. She talks
Yeah.
about families being reunited saints from all generations coming together and everyone just praising God in perfect harmony.
So it's not like we just become these like generic spirits floating around.
Yeah.
We keep who we are, our connections,
Mhm.
our love for the people we were close to here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
White emphasizes that the love we experience here
Yeah.
is just a glimpse of
Yeah.
the profound love and connection we'll experience in heaven.
That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
It makes heaven feel less like this abstract, ethereal place
Yeah.
and more like a continuation of the best parts of being human,
Yeah.
but, amplified, perfected.
Yeah. I think that's one of the key takeaways from heaven.
Yeah.
That it's not this alien realm.
Right.
It's like the fulfillment of our deepest desires for connection, love, and understanding.
And there's this sense of purpose, too, right? It's
Yeah.
not just, endless relaxation.
Mm.
We're actually part of something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And that goes back to the whole idea of heaven as a school.
Right.
White suggests that learning isn't just about acquiring knowledge.
Yeah.
It's about deepening our understanding of God's love
Okay.
and participating in his creative work.
So it's a dynamic place,
Yes.
not just this static, eternal boredom. And we get to learn about everything. Sign me up for that cosmic history class.
Don't forget about the angelic intervention seminar.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Imagine hearing those stories about all the times angels protected us,
Oh, yeah.
guided us, influenced our lives.
Okay, now that's a class I would definitely attend.
Right.
I bet there's some amazing stories there.
Oh, for sure.
But let's be real for a second.
Okay.
White also talks about the reality
Yeah,
that not everyone makes it to heaven.
that's true. And she's very specific about who's excluded.
Okay, like who?
Yeah.
What are the deal breakers for getting into heaven?
Well, she mentions individuals like Cain,
Right, Herod.
those involved in Christ's crucifixion.
Yeah.
But she also talks about these broader categories of people.
Okay, so like what?
She talks about those who just reject God's offer of salvation,
Okay.
those who choose to live in rebellion against his will,
Mm-hmm.
and those who prioritize worldly pursuits over, spiritual growth.
So it's not just about specific actions, but really the state of your heart,
Yeah,
your alignment with God's principle.
exactly. And that's where this idea of judgment comes in.
Yeah.
White describes this final judgment where every person's deeds and choices,
Yeah.
they're weighed against God's perfect standard.
That sounds pretty intense. Is it like a courtroom drama? Does everyone have to stand before God and plead their case?
Well, she describes it as a scene where books are opened,
Right.
Symbolizing a full accounting of
What?
every thought, word, deed. It's a reminder that we're accountable for our choices.
And those who haven't accepted Christ's sacrifice,
Yeah.
they don't make the cut.
That's White's perspective.
Mm.
She's very clear that there's only one path to salvation.
Okay. Heavy stuff. But I'm curious, what happens to those who are judged,
Hmm.
unworthy of heaven? What's their fate?
White describes it as the ultimate destruction of the wicked, as a
Okay.
consequence of their rebellion against God.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't shy away from, depicting those consequences.
Wow, that's a stark picture. But I guess it makes sense. If heaven is this place of perfect love and harmony,
Right.
then those who choose darkness and discord, they wouldn't belong there.
That's the logic, White presents.
Right.
But it's worth noting that she also emphasizes the pain and regret
Okay.
that those excluded from heaven experience, not for their sins,
Okay.
but for the loss of eternal life.
So it's not like they're gleefully banished to some fiery underworld or something.
No, it's more about the profound sorrow
Yeah.
of realizing what they've lost. That eternal separation from God's love.
It adds another layer to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about punishment.
Right.
It's about this deep sadness of choosing a path away from God.
I think that's an important point.
Yeah.
And it connects to the idea that God's desire is for everyone to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the choice is ours.
It's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences,
Yeah.
not just in this life, but for eternity. But let's shift gears a bit, get back to the good stuff,
Yeah.
heaven.
Yeah.
White doesn't just talk about, who's in and who's out.
Right.
She really paints this vivid picture of what life in heaven is like.
Absolutely. She goes into detail about the New Jerusalem, the restored Garden of Eden, the beauty and wonder of a world untouched by, sin and suffering.
It's like she's trying to awaken our senses to what awaits us? What details really stand out to you?
Well, she describes the redeemed wearing white robes,
Yeah.
symbolizing their purity,
Okay.
and receiving crowns with their names inscribed on them.
To personalized crowns. Okay, that's pretty cool.
She also mentions that they have golden harps
Oh, yeah.
that they play and fill heaven with music.
Okay, I have to admit, the harp thing's growing on me.
Right.
But it's not just about playing music and looking great, is it?
No.
What else do people do in heaven?
One of the most interesting things White describes
Yeah.
is the concept of heaven as a school.
Okay, back to that.
She suggests that the redeemed continue to learn and grow, exploring the mysteries of the universe and delving deeper into God's plan.
Wait, so heaven is like a cosmic university.
Yeah.
No exams, no pressure, just pure learning for the joy of it.
Exactly. Imagine having access to all knowledge,
Wow.
being able to explore the farthest reaches of space,
It's amazing.
and understanding the intricacies of God's creation.
Now, that's what I call an education. What are you most excited to learn about in heaven?
I'm really fascinated by the idea of understanding the history of angelic intervention
Oh, yeah?
in human affairs. White suggests that we'll learn about the times when angels protected us,
Right.
guided us, or influenced events in our lives.
Okay, that's a history book I would definitely read.
Right.
I bet there's some pretty incredible stories there.
I'm sure.
But it's not just about learning, is it?
No.
There's also this sense of purpose,
Yes.
of actively participating in something much bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. White suggests that the redeemed will be involved in God's creative work,
Wow.
contributing to the beauty and harmony of the universe.
So it's not just about resting and relaxing. It's about continuing to grow and contribute in these meaningful ways.
Yeah.
That's a pretty inspiring vision of the afterlife.
It is, and it challenges that traditional idea of
Yeah.
heaven as just a place of passive bliss.
Right.
White's heaven is a dynamic place, a realm of continuous growth, learning creative expression.
It's like the ultimate self-actualization,
Yeah.
but on a cosmic scale. And it all ties back to the idea that heaven isn't just a place.
Right.
It's a state of being,
Exactly.
a way of living that reflects God's love and character.
That's it.
That's profound. And it raises a really interesting question. If heaven is a state of being, can we experience elements of it here and now?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think that's where White's message becomes really empowering.
Okay.
She suggests that we don't have to wait for death to experience a taste of heaven.
You're right. She talks about experiencing heaven on earth
Yeah.
by living in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we do that?
It's about cultivating a Christ-like character
Right.
and living in harmony with God's principles.
So it's about bringing heaven down to earth,
Yes.
so to speak, through our actions and choices.
Exactly. She uses this powerful analogy of a wellspring of life
Right.
to illustrate this.
Right.
She says that Christ dwelling in us
Mm-hmm.
should be as evident as a wellspring of life, flowing out through our words, actions, and love for others.
So it's about being a conduit for God's love and grace, reflecting heaven in our everyday interactions with others.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And she makes it clear this isn't just some abstract concept.
Yeah.
It shows up in real ways,
Go.
in our kindness, our compassion, our
Yeah.
generosity, or forgiveness.
So it's about aligning our lives with God's principles, not just to secure a spot in heaven,
Right.
but to experience the joy and peace of heaven right here, right now.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
It really makes you think about the choices you're making.
Yeah.
And how they shape your experience.
Absolutely.
Like both now and in the future.
We've covered so much ground in this episode.
We have.
From the path to heaven
Yeah.
to the consequences of rebellion, the joys of the afterlife, and the possibility of experiencing heaven right here on earth.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Yes.
And I'm sure our listeners are as captivated by all of this as we are.
Yeah.
If you want to dive even deeper into the details of what awaits those who choose to follow Christ, I highly recommend reading Ellen G. White's Heaven.
It's a book that will stay with you.
You will.
And if you're enjoying this deep dive,
Yeah.
be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive
Yes.
for more thought-provoking explorations of all sorts of fascinating topics.
We'll be back soon with more deep dives, guaranteed to expand your knowledge and spark your imagination. But for now, we'll leave you with this thought. What aspect of heaven resonates most deeply with you?
Yeah.
And how can you reflect that aspect in your life today?
It's a question worth pondering. Until next time.
As we wrap up our deep dive into Ellen G. White's Heaven,
Yeah.
one thing that really sticks with me is just how much she emphasizes hope.
Yeah, it's definitely not all doom and gloom, fire and brimstone. There's this real sense of optimism throughout the whole book, this vision of the future that's just, well, filled with beauty and joy and purpose.
And what I find so empowering is that White doesn't just, relegate that hope to the afterlife.
Right.
She's saying we can experience a taste of heaven right here, right now.
Exactly. It's like, hey, you don't have to wait till you die to start living a heavenly life.
Exactly. And she even gives us a roadmap for, how to do that
Mm-hmm.
by, cultivating that Christ-like character
Yeah,
and aligning our lives with God's principles. It's like we can bring heaven down to earth.
I like that. Bringing heaven down to earth.
It's not about earning our way in. It's
Yeah.
about reflecting those qualities,
Right.
of heaven in our daily lives.
Yeah.
Really makes you think about what that actually looks like,
It does.
What does it mean to, let those inner qualities shine through, that love, kindness, compassion, generosity, forgiveness, being that beacon of hope in a world that honestly can often feel pretty dark and chaotic.
Yeah, it's like creating these little pockets of heaven right here, right now.
Exactly.
And it's a powerful reminder that we're not just, passively receiving God's grace. We're actually participating in, bringing his kingdom to fruition.
So it's about living with intention, right?
Yeah.
Making choices that reflect, well, our deepest values and that reflect the love and beauty we want to experience in heaven.
It's a journey, a
Yeah.
process, learning, growing, refining who we are. It's about taking those small steps every single day to become more like Christ.
And White encourages us to really embrace this journey
Yeah.
with enthusiasm and purpose.
Right. It's not about escaping the world.
No.
It's about transforming it, bringing a little bit of heaven into every interaction,
Yeah.
every decision, every moment.
It's about recognizing that, well, the potential for heaven, it's already within us. It's our job to nurture it, let it blossom.
That's a great way to put it.
What an inspiring challenge, right?
Mm.
To live each day as a reflection of that love, beauty, and harmony, the kind that awaits us in heaven. And that's something we can all strive for, no matter what we believe.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about this book. It's not just about the afterlife.
Right.
It's a guide to living a better life right now.
A more meaningful, fulfilling life. It's a reminder that heaven isn't just a destination. It's a journey. It's a way of being. That starts right here, right now.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Ellen G. White's vision of heaven.
We've covered a lot. The path to heaven, the second coming, the joys of the afterlife, and, well, those consequences of choosing a different path.
And we even talked about, how we can experience heaven right here on earth.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've only just scratched the surface, really, of everything that White covers in this book.
Yeah, if you're as fascinated as we are, definitely pick up a copy of Heaven for yourself. There's so much more to discover. All these captivating details and insights into what awaits those who choose to follow Christ.
Absolutely. And hey, if you enjoyed our deep dive today, make sure you subscribe to the deep dive. We do more of these, exploring all sorts of fascinating topics. We'll be back soon with more. Guaranteed to expand your knowledge, spark your imagination. But until then, keep diving deep. And as you go about your day, ask yourself, what aspect of heaven resonates most deeply with you? And how can you reflect that in your life today?
It's definitely a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Till next time.